Okay, hello, it's Scott and Rita. And Rita was just saying we're going to get out of our intellect when we do this cosmic dialogue in the future about all of the alchemizations and miracles and gifts and amazements that followed the coronavirus that just showed up. And in realization that also that Rita and I had been following a string for a while. And probably like many in the world were following a string. So I want you to start, Rita, because you are a little more adept at getting out of your intellect than I am.
Hey now.
People would say that I am out of my intellect a lot. But,
I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll go. Okay, get out of what I should do, what I'm thinking I should go towards. My eyes twitching. That means something. Okay, we'll go 5 years. Can you see my eye twitching?
Yes.
Yeah, and Scott has had all kinds of internet issues, and you're actually pretty good right now.
I am, I guess. Yeah. Oh, well. I'm going to give you the full screen for a little while, so you go.
Okay. All right. So it's 2025, and back in 2020, we were really experiencing a lot. We were experiencing more than we understood. We were focused on the coronavirus, but Scott and I had been feeling for a couple of years that something was coming that was going to shift the planet in ways that nobody planned for. Least of all, the people making the global plans for their own benefit, regardless of how it affected most of the world population. And so looking back at the panic and the fear and the oppression and the misdirection, it's all obvious now in hindsight. But Scott and I had been following some threads, and it was so complex and intertwined. It was very difficult to lay it all out. We'd almost need as detectives solve crimes, a whole board of strings attached to different people and different events. But now, wow. The world has changed so drastically, and it really required people to choose not to follow what was being manufactured for us. And yes, the population is less right now than it was 5 years ago, because many chose not to choose the new way. And it was very difficult to talk about it back then because people were so clinging to wanting to believe that authority would take care of us. And honestly, that was the primary the primary shift we had to make emotionally, knowing that we needed to take care of ourselves and each other and work not against authority, but counter to authority, towards the greater good for everybody and the planet. So Scott, what, as that point, what did you notice in that?
I'm going to take a little breath here
Mm-hmm.
and let you know here. And Rita, I'll add you back, so don't worry. After all of the coronavirus cases began to ramp down, when there was really no choice but to really unshackle the population from, this control systems, just immediately people flooded the streets to meet their neighbors, to greet their neighbors, to hug one another. It was a really interesting scene, and it was amazing. We had, there's a baby boom that happened as a result of this, and many people predicted that anyway, and so that was an obvious effect. So that's one thing that the whole country and planet noticed. But also, there was a resurgence in the arts, a complete I resurgence. I mean, I don't even know how to explain this. This is it's amazing how people are creating now in this time, and artists are rewarded, musicians are rewarded, grocery store workers are still hailed as some of the heroes of our time. Some people still lived in a little bit of fear for a while, and as that sort of waned off, we realized that there were people who just were unwilling to start over again, start again. It was something that Rita wrote in her book, and I'm going to read it really quickly just because it was so poignant for that time, about change yourself some more, and start over and change yourself some more. People had the permission, not necessarily permission from government, but they had permission in their heart to change themselves and then change some more and start over. There were interesting gifts with this, I would say, I don't know. People look back and say, they jokingly call it the government payoff. That, people were able to start over. It wasn't the old economy anymore. It was dating and economy and faith and everything. Everything seemed to run on the true currency of love. And that's what I see now more and more every day. We had to alchemize our bodies. We had to alchemize our, if you want to call an old new age term of vibration, we had to kind of just make sure that we were in this focus of away from the intellectual mind, away from the fear-based, monkey brain, or there are scientific terms about this, and they're talked about all the time. We have to focus ourselves more in our emotional brain to walk around this planet. We have technologies that almost force us to learn to train ourselves how to, be in this emotional state of heightened awareness from the right brain, or not from the brain-based fear. And it that helped us to create new synapses in our brains. And the folks who are thriving are the ones who really did do that. I mean, things like the arts helped them immensely right away. The arts, connection, the the dopamine rush of getting rid of the cortisol in our bodies, and also the rush of the hormones, the love hormones that we have coming through, was a massive, massive. Many people say cure, but the rush of hormones that came out, even chemically, was something that helped us alchemize this and go into the future. And people love this near, it's an old term, this near addictive feeling to creativity and art making and satire, and but it's on a different currency wavelength. It's on this like love as a currency wavelength. What else did you see, Rita? I'm gonna add you back.
Yeah. What was beautiful and fascinating was that there were rumblings of revolution, a violent revolution, because intellectual revolution wasn't working. And all we knew was force and violence to make change, because that wasn't working. But as it turned out, because of all of the oppression put on us, all of the different ways that we were being manipulated and reduced, caused us to go towards a spiritual place. And it was just an intellectual notion at the time that love is more powerful than evil. But we lived it. We lived the truth of that. And that's really what changed everything. And all of the restrictions were actually the key to bringing the love out. That's what nobody planned on. And that's what had kept us faithful through all of it, knowing that there was a divine mechanism, for the change to occur, where we wouldn't have to, well, we never have to, but we wouldn't even be tempted to resort to violence. You and I, at least. Some people were. But those who refused that were actually the core of the change happening.
And then it seemed to just snowball.
Mm-hmm.
Just tumbling through. It was as contagious as the
riot. It was a love riot.
It was a love riot that spread.
A love mob.
And as people felt that, people started recovering who were forced to isolate. They would recover faster. People became immune. Caregivers who were really in touch with this love factor, who brought it on. It was just this wave. It was so interesting. And like you said, just like a mechanism turned on. A mechanism of faith and of new connection to a spiritual stream. Oh, and that's like so appropriate to say when we talk about the 5G connection now. Back then, we couldn't really talk about 5G because we'd still look like lunatics. And maybe sometimes we still appear that way now. Many of us know about the fears of 5G and the dangers and what it would do to our bodies and our cells, and how many people had to adjust. And yeah, there are theories. There will always be theories, we feel. But a lot of us are done. the time for pointing and blaming and shaming. We don't have time for it.
Well, it doesn't work. It's not productive in any way.
No.
No. We're in the love stream, the truth stream. Theories are becoming non-existent because when you have truth, there's no need for theories. When you have knowing, that's that.
When you lean on them, total faith.
Yes. And as you and I started just choosing faith, we kept looking for the switch for that mechanism. We'd look for it in our sleep. We'd look for it in evidence in the physical world. And we would find it. We would find places where we could switch it on. And we got really good at that. And it was hard at first trying to explain or teach anyone else to do that, but we just kept doing it because, I mean, what was there to lose? Our health.
I remember the first midnight tennis gathering that there was during this whole, I mean, spring and summer were happening, and then this first midnight tennis gathering that just spontaneously happened, and the park lights were switched on, and people of all generations came out in that little gathering of 8 of us, and we justified it. Well, we're distancing ourselves and playing doubles. Who cares? If we run into one another, you know, this is endorphin creating. People started meeting in the woods. College campuses were closed, and so people found places on campuses and woods and to meet, to share, exchange baked goods, and have their own little, potlucks in the forest. I look back and I see that time as such an igniter for love and for truth.
Mm-hmm.
We accepted ourselves and other people again.
Yeah.
And we go on. We go on, and powers that be want to still creep us back.
No, the powers that be are no longer be.
They no longer be. Every once in a while, you see a little.
They're there, but well, okay, they're just not the powers, right?
Right.
They want to be the powers, and they keep trying, but it's like a fly hitting a window.
You'd think they'd learn.
Mm-hmm.
We just laugh. You'd think they'd figure it out.
Yeah. And it only took 5 years, less than that. Isn't that amazing? We never would have believed that back. Well,
Yeah.
most people, we did, but most people didn't.
And also in the thick of things, a week felt like months and years, but really 5 years, it feels like yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And once we read that reconnection of like love is the real currency, then it was just like, oh, I can wait for anything.
Well, the quarantines were lifted after a couple of months of the virus, and everyone felt safe again, except that people were still getting sick. But none of our parental authorities, meaning governments and those in power, they weren't taking precautions, and everybody got confused. We still didn't feel well. What was going on? And they were just cavalier about it. Just go home and rest. Yes, but my job. Oh, well, we don't want you infecting others. But there were no restrictions anymore. And it really just jumbled people's minds, which was a gift. The 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 forced isolation and then the lifting of that force together really made people start questioning.
I almost look back and I can't of, wow. Yeah, I don't even look at things the same way.
Mm-hmm.
I, as soon as I see, I can see it immediately. When fear creeps in, and then I just lift my gaze.
Mm-hmm.
It's immediate. I lift my gaze and then just hope just streams in.
Right.
Faith streams in. And
And we started noticing that fear was an indicator that there was some man-made or spiritual imposition on us at that moment. So we could go, oh, that's not a fear I have to follow. This is something coming at me. And like you said, lift our gaze away from that and not get wrapped up in it. And that had just incredible effects and far-reaching implications towards the good.
mhm. It definitely was a defining moment, I think, in a global story. So I'm still kind of in awe. You know, there was suffering, misinformation, um, name calling, pointing, blaming, uh, discrediting, all of the nastiness that people could throw at each other. And then when that no longer worked, it was just like you were on the middle of a teeter totter. Well, I can't discredit you. I can't do this. I can't sway the pendulum. And people just started releasing. They let go. They're like, what else is there to do? They got off the ride of, there was no more thrill in one-upmanship. There was no more thrill in I'm right, you're wrong. There was no more thrill in, um, you know, my ideology versus your ideology. Because once people saw that, and then they're like, oh, well, there's this group of folks over here that are living
Living
again, creating music, creating art,
laughing,
dancing, laughing.
not at the expense of anyone, but enjoy.
They had, it was, you know, even folks stripped of all of their previous securities, material securities, just untouchably, amazingly happy, unbreakably happy.
Yeah.
I look at that time when I first saw that. I mean, I amazingly, I just fell to my knees. I wept, I cried, I laughed. I thanked God. Um, and it was the same thing. My little spinning feeling above my head and my body and the tingling sensations happened again, and I knew that this was a complete sign that if all of us shared this moment, we would all feel this, and ourselves would be healed. And they were for me. I believe too that even a year before this coronavirus, that I intuitively had the worst flu of my life a year before coronavirus, and but I knew that something was shifting. I accepted the illness and worked through it positively, allowed it, which allowed me to be a food delivery driver after that immediately. And I just look back and I think, wow. And even Rita, you in the circles, and they were little immunity boosters all along for us to keep doing our work. These cells are cosmic beings. I don't even know what to call them so many times anymore. They're like beings. They're friends. Even though the one on your book.
I have my friend right here. It's hard to see with this. There we go.
And that was the one with ease.
Yes.
And even your prepared to be undone circle that spoke of breakdowns.
Yep, right there.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Well, what you described in that was the actual disintegration of the predatory era. We chose love, so we became unpreyed upon.
Immune from predation.
Mm-hmm.
And even a year before the coronavirus hit, we had a video about the end of predation and 1 million souls.
Yeah. 1 million souls that's plenty to shift the entire planet.
And I say this just not to brush ourselves, but all along we had messages. Mm-hmm. And people are coming forward and sharing their stories of all along they had messages.
Yeah, nowhere to share them at the time, really.
Right.
Where they'd be accepted.
Right. Because the only messages at that time were those of fear and discredit and economies of scarcity.
Yeah, boy, that was just showing up. The black hole of consumption was just spotlighted. But I felt just so much gratitude for all the messages I had gotten to prepare me for that time. And you as well, I know. And that alone shifted plenty.
Yeah.
We could see where it had effects on our environment and other people. Just feeling gratitude rather than fear or scarcity.
It was like stepping into a river for the first time. Just that feeling. I mean, many of us step in rivers before in our life, but it's like, oh my gosh, this is what this feels like. I've stepped into the river for the first time, and the current is amazing.
Oftentimes when I'm in a river, I think of all of the molecules in that water and how it just continues. Sometimes rivers dry up, but for the most part, there's always a stream, and the amazement that overtakes me that this molecule passing by me right now is going to be replaced. It just is, as a gift, because it's been designed that way on the planet.
Do you remember the first news reports of people in the first spring rains just flowing out of their homes just to get in the street? Well, they were still like 6 feet apart. Everyone was just in the middle of the street during a downpour.
Mm-hmm. just to feel a natural element and to be cleansed.
They brought their children out.
And water is such an electricity conductor. So to get recharged.
Mm. Mm.
And it was so weird talking about it back then. Having feelings that didn't fit. That was really strange. And to allow those feelings and to honor them.
Yeah.
Jeez.
It's great that we no longer really dwell about rejection anymore.
No.
There's
Even back
no,
then, we didn't dwell. We felt it, but
yeah,
we knew where we were going. So the rejection is on the rejector.
yeah. I don't miss the life before.
Oh, God, no.
Glad to make you laugh.
That would be ridiculous.
Yeah, talk about getting out of your intellectual mind. I don't miss it.
No, not at all. And people were so afraid of the change. And we were like, come on, let's get on with it. And yeah, that was not always well received.
And now we have lots of really cool things that we dialogue about in the future. Oh my goodness, it's like the lid's off for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It all started then. I mean, but the lid's totally off for us, you know. It's so great to push the, I don't want to say push the envelope, but I want to say it's like the most freeing experience. And I have to say this is it's the most freeing experience to reach into an unknown future and not see it as this dark hallway that we go down, or this unknown dark fear hallway. And it's so freeing now. I mean, look at where we've come and look at the positivity that's happened. And now it's like, whoa, you know, you and I, like, we now do things about extraterrestrial life, and we do things about the cosmic universe being alive and what it speaks to us. And
Well, we don't just dialogue about it, we live it.
we live it.
And I want to amend something that I said just a little bit ago. We didn't know where we were going. We just knew we wanted to go there. We didn't know exactly what it would look like. It was completely in the unknown, just like for everyone else. But we were willing to go there. We were willing to let go of everything that we had known to explore the world of all possibilities and to create without restriction.
Yeah. It's a laugh. I laughed back there because, like, right before all this happened, we were like inundated. You look back at like the arts and movies and things, we were inundated with a lot of like this, I'll call it, it's an outdated word, I'll call it prophecy, just as an example, or prediction, or, I mean, look at all of the arts and songs that we had back then anyway. We had the Frozen 2 movies singing Into the Unknown, and we had the the whole Let It Go and A Million Dreams. And I mean, there was a thread everywhere now that we look back.
Mm-hmm.
But only a few of us chose at that time to see it, and now artists, musicians, painters um, see it every day,
Mm-hmm.
and they realize the effect they have in shifting the very consciousness of the whole fabric. You know, power structures and nations and political paradigms are just so old
Mm-hmm.
and over. But now it's,
Self-governing.
Yeah,
You're self-governed.
let me create a song that can help you reorganize yourselves. People say those kinds of things. Let me create a song that connects you to God.
Yeah. Who needs legislation when you have that?
It's just amazing. Happy to see it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Happy to see it 5 years ago. Happy to see glimpses of it 5 years ago, knowing that it was going to be right there for us to be in as reality.
Yep. We might have thought it was primordial ooze at the time. People called it that somewhat, into the mud, into the muck, into the ooze, and it's like, oh, but that's some healing mud,
Mm-hmm.
healing ooze. Put it between your toes.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm just going to go out and create some more, I think.
Mm-hmm. Right. Let's get started.
Let's continue.
Let's continue. We've been starting for,
Oh my gosh.
we had been starting for a couple of years already.
And we're on a big cosmic journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you, Rita, for all of this.
Thank you. Thank you for being the witness, the one who hears, the one who sees, along with me.
The one who learned how to be trampled upon and not let it affect him.
There's a skill.
Yeah, it was a complete skill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't be torn apart ever again. It's just almost tear my limbs apart, whatever. But
Yeah.
it such a beautiful training ground.
Mm-hmm.
I look back at it in love, even all of the heartache and hardships and the rejection I allowed myself to feel, how it hurt back then, how it really felt separating and isolating. But I look back in love.
Yeah.
And now, going forward, I'm going to do something like look back in love.
Sure. Well, back then, both of us, we were seeing it all as gifts. We were grateful for all of those opportunities to feel rejected or trampled upon or discarded, isolated. That's the active way of going through it rather than the passive victim way.
And then everyone was forced to be isolated for a moment. for a breath.
That was interesting. Yeah.
And a long time ago, I had a dream. It was a long time ago of the folks in the dream world who would just come and drop respirators and oxygen masks on the masses who had collapsed and couldn't breathe. And I thought, wow, this is what we do now. We just drop the oxygen mask spiritually and let the breath come back.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like ending now? Or I want to hold on and keep talking, but
I know.
this video is long. But thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.